Today, AI can write code in seconds. But before you merge that code, there is this one particular question that really matters. What else could this code break? And that's the question Otter helps you answer. So hi, I'm Sagnik and this is Captain Otter Patch. And in this video, we'll show you how to get started with Otter from connecting your first repository to understanding your first codebase finding. And by the end, you will know how Otter goes beyond reviewing isolated files and helps you understand the application as a connected system. Now, most review tools begin with the diff. Otter over here begins with the entire application as its context. Now, because your repository isn't just a folder full of files, it's a connected system of functions, services, APIs, various dependencies, database calls, and other various different paths. So, what happens is that before Otter reviews a change, it builds a map of how all of these pieces connect to each other. So now getting started is pretty straightforward. So the first thing you have to do is you need to sign in. You can sign in with your GitHub ID, you can sign in with a Google account, or you can sign in just using your email address. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and sign in with my GitHub account and it will take you to the organization page. Now, for the first time you sign in, it will create an organization for you by default. Apart from that, you can create an organization of your own. So I'll just go over here, create an organization, and every organization is an isolated workspace because we take security seriously and security isn't a feature, it is the reason why this platform exists in the first place. So that's the reason every organization is divided into separate workspaces with separate databases, separate storage, and even separate virtual machines to run your code base. So I'll just create a demo account video. Now, this is a very quick process where we actually spin up virtual environments and multiple databases for you to get started with. You can create multiple organizations to make sure that you can segregate your different code bases into different sections. The reason why workspaces exist is so that there is no data sharing between different organizations. And also, we don't ever use your data to train any of our models. Now, that's it. That's how you get started with Otter in the first place. For most organizations, you have repositories that you already want to connect and get started with. So you can just go ahead and click on the I have repositories to connect option, and it will take you to a GitHub sign-in workflow where you can add the repository that you want to connect and it will go ahead from there. In some situations, we do understand that you want to use a repository from our end. So not to worry, once you have your GitHub connected with the platform, we give you a number of repositories to get started with. So for example, you can either choose a Python worker, you can choose a Next.js app, you can choose a Node API, or you can also use an AI agent application to get started with. The moment you select any of the repositories to get started with, it creates a clone of this repository in your GitHub account and Otter gets initialized in it automatically. So that's how it is. That's how it works. And the same process works for any repository in your code base as well. And that's it. You don't need to add any data manually to Otter in order for Otter to understand how your code base works or how your code base architecture is designed or stuff like that. Otter goes through code bases and it understands what it needs to do and what it needs to learn by itself in order to make sure it works the best for you. Now, once a repository is connected and Otter starts building its application map, this is how an indexed application looks like. So I'm using Otter's own CLI as an example to show how the entire indexing architecture looks like. Now, it not just identifies what that repository is supposed to do, but it also goes through how the testing has been created, what are the team rules that are used, is there any external services that you're using or not, and in case, if you remember, Otter is made in order to make sure that it can run the code base in its own virtual environment to test for errors and test for fixes. We also identify, is there any system or is there any particular package that needs to be done in a particular way, so that Otter knows what it needs to do in order to make your code run. So we do that. We try to understand what are your most important files in the project. We create a complete architecture map of how your entire project works, how your team codes and the different team rules that your teams or that your developers are supposed to follow. So Otter is trained and Otter is designed to be a part or an extension of your current team.
It is the quality check extension for your team so that it makes sure that you don't end up shipping faulty code into production. So that is what Autter has been made and Autter has been trained to do. It learns from everything that you are doing, it learns from every piece of code that you push out, and these learnings are always scoped to your organization itself. There's no other organization that will be able to understand or know about how you are shipping code, or these instructions and learnings are always limited to what your organization does and not anyone else's. If you can see further, we also go ahead and look into how your code base health has been looking at, how many functions you have used, what are the complications of each function that you have, what is the complexity of the functions. We also go ahead and look at your external dependencies, which all dependencies are in a state of risk, which all dependencies need to be upgraded, and stuff like that. And it just does not stop here. We also go ahead and try to understand, is there anything else we need to learn from this? If there is any other team member who has been reviewing code for a very long time, Otter has a tendency to learn from your previous experienced team members, from your previous experienced developers. So Otter tends to understand how your team has trained or how your team has previously worked in order to review your code. And Otter, being the best teammate that you can get for quality check, it ends up understanding and learning from your best developers to know how your team wants to review code. And it keeps learning, it keeps fixing issues based on what it has understood over time. And another thing that we end up doing is Otter, and in today's day, when you are vibe coding things, it's not just important that your code works. It's very important that your code bases that are being written, the code bases that are being run, need to be at par with the design guidelines that you have, say the readmes, the brand guidelines, the design documentation, your brand voices, and stuff like that. So we let you connect your Notion documents and your GitHub repos and any other pasted text that you feel is important to be a part of Otter's context, so that Otter knows what it needs to remember about the design being or the front end being, so that it knows how your platform works, how your platform looks, and how your platform should sound like.
So now for larger repositories, this can be a bit of a time taking process because it ends up traversing through the entire code base, trying to understand every variable, every function, every call path that is there. So it might take some time. You can leave Auto to do its own work, and once it's completed, we'll send you an email that it's done, and you can then run a code based scan, or you can raise PR reviews on your own. Even if you start raising PR reviews, we'll just queue them until the indexing is completed, because the indexing is the primary process that helps us understand how your code base works.
Now, once your indexing is completed, is when you can actually start using Otter at its full capacity. You can go ahead and run your own code base scan, whose job is to go through your entire code base. You can schedule a scan every weekly, or once in every 15 days. And the job of a code base scan is to go through entire code base and figure out um, if there are any security issues, dependency issues, code quality issues, or runtime behavior and risks that are being introduced by AI generated code. Apart from that, you can also go ahead and see the PR requests that are being raised on the platform. You can go through the PRs that have been raised. Every PR that gets raised is broken into several chapters, and every chapter has the issues marked in it. And it also tells you what are the files that you need to review first, and how every file is interconnected to each other, and what are the errors in every file that are there. So that is how we make sure that we don't just give you a pile of disconnected warnings. We try to prioritize every finding using the context and the design guidelines of the application that you have given us to work with. Now, Otter is not just limited to just reviewing your code, or making sure you don't ship faulty code to production. We also make sure that it is very easy and much more seamless for your developers or your team members to understand what every code base is about. So you can go ahead and generate detailed wikis, or detailed documentation about how your code base works, how your code base is organized, how each file is structured, what each file is supposed to do, and things that they need to watch out for. Now this is also a part of the context that is being used when Autter is reviewing a code base as well. Apart from that, we do believe that product development in today's world should be an autonomous thing. That is, your product should be self-driving itself. So we let you connect our own observability agents or bring in your observability agents like Posthoc, Grafana, and Sentry, connect Author to them, and we try to make sure that we track every error that's happening over time. Now, once we have a record of what are the active incidents that are happening, what are the issues that are coming up, and what's working, what's not working, it helps us go ahead and raise fixes for issues that have happened. For example, you can see an issue that has happened over here, and we have already created a fix for that issue, added that fix already, and raised a PR for you to just go ahead, check it out on an email, and just run a merge to it. We keep running in a loop as long as we know that this issue has not been fixed. We fix it for you until unless we are satisfied and you are satisfied that your code base works. So that is one of the big part, and this is something that I'll be talking about in another video because it itself is a bigger engineering thing that we have worked on. Apart from that, we also let CLI track which lines of code has been changed by which model and what step function or what function was called in order to make sure that line made was changed. The line was changed because of that reason. Apart from that, you can also go ahead and see how your team has been performing over time, what are the issues that are being solved, how your issue severity has been looking for over time, and so on and so forth.
So that's all from today's video, and that's how you get started with Autter. Connect your repository, let Autter build the application map, run your first scan, and investigate the findings with the context of an entire code base. Now, in the next video, I'll show you how Autter is used to review every individual pull request and how the concept of blast radius actually works in case of Autter. So connect, understand, scan, and act. Until then, goodbye. So if you would like Autter on your own repository, you'll find the link below and subscribe if you want to see the next walkthrough. Till then, bye bye.